Okay, so here is the recording of the step-by-steps of how to do Excel. This is what we did in class, but I'm going to do it at a decent speed, but since it's recorded, you can pause it or slow it down. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So first off, you have the initial tab, Guide to Using Excel, and this is where you can find the steps for how to run each of the 4 tests that we can run in this class. So you'll want to save this document to your desktop so you always have this accessible. So we'll go on to the first example, which is our Miss America example. Okay, so we did kind of go over this in class. So hopefully you remember that when we're looking at 2 dependent variables, we're not controlling anything here. We're simply comparing the age of the Miss America winner that year and putting it against the number of murders that occurred that year. So that tells us that we are running a correlation. So the next thing you'll do is go to your guide and look for the steps for a correlation. So it tells us to calculate the correlation coefficient, our little r, and the p-value. You actually have to run a regression. And I know that's very counterintuitive, okay? We discussed the difference between a correlation and a regression and how significant that is. However, in Excel, if you just run the correlation, it does not give you a p-value. So it's just much quicker and more efficient to do it this way, okay? But you're probably very hesitant to do this. I'm hopeful that you are. Again, it's just an Excel thing. This is just to make it more efficient. So we'll go back to our Miss America tab, go to data, wherever you have data on your version, data analysis, and then we're going to highlight regression. Okay, don't be tempted to come up and hit correlation because you will quickly find that it gives you basically no info and it's very hard to read. So we'll go regression. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is select the data. So we need to tell Excel what we want it to put on the Y and the X. So since we're doing a correlation, again, there's no independent variable. It does not matter which variable goes on which axes. So I'm just going to randomly pick the first one. So sorry, that was quick. To select the data, you hit this little square here. Then you select what you want by first clicking on the top cell, then hold down Shift and select the last cell that you want to include. Now, I always include the heading, okay, and I'll show you why in a second, but you don't have to, but it's a little easier if you do. So I included the heading here. We'll go back and now select the second set. We'll do murders, just like that. And then the year we don't need, it's just going to make the graph more complicated. So we can just leave that as so. Next thing you need to make sure is that if you selected the labels like I did, murder and age, that you actually select this box here. If you don't, then it's going to count this cell as if it's a 0 or just an extra number, and that's going to throw off your N and your results will be incorrect. However, if you did not highlight these 2 cells, then you can just unclick labels and it will still work. It just won't include these headings when it gives you the output. So we don't need to select anything else here. Never select constant and 0, just labels, confidence interval. Then you look at your output, and this just tells you where do you want to put the output of the statistical information. So you can do it on a new worksheet by clicking one of these below. I personally like to keep it on the same tab. So what I'll do is put output range, hit this, and then just select the box where I want the output to go, right? So you can select any box, but I just put it right next to it. Now everything is set and we can hit OK. All right, now we have our summary output. So we have our statistics here. It automatically gives you this ANOVA info, but we don't need it. And then down here, it's going to give us the rest of the information. So when you first look at this, you're probably like, okay, what do I need? Okay, there's a lot of info. So this is the point where you'll go back to the guide for using Excel and you'll go to correlation, and I've highlighted exactly where to find the info that I'm asking for. So to find the R, you're going to select this top row. So to keep organized, I always just select it myself and highlight it. Obviously not mandatory. Oops. Since I'm never going to look at your Excel, but I just think this makes it easier when you go to make your figure caption. I don't know why that's not working. There we go. So that's my R. Okay, what else do we need? We also need our p-value. So you'll go to, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth column, and it's the second p-value. Okay, so there's 2, we want the second one. Here we go, find that here, and that's the p-value I want. What else? Okay, so the last thing you'll need, you could count the observations or the n, or you can go right here and it will tell you how many data points you have for our n. All right, so now we can go ahead and make the figure. So since we ran a correlation, we need to make a scatter plot. Now, the easiest way to make a scatter plot is to, again, select the data we want. We don't need the years, okay? We just need our X and Y with the headings. We'll go to Insert and then select the type of figure you want. So we want an XY scatter plot, so I'm gonna just hit this one. Perfect. Now we have our graph and we just need to essentially customize it to include all of the things we need. So we don't need a title. We're going to include that in our figure caption, so we can erase that. Now, hopefully your first thought is there are no axes labels. So you'll come over to add chart element or quick layout. So quick layout, you can select maybe like this one will give you a title, the X, the Y, but then it also gives you a little key, whatever's easiest for you. Or you can just insert one by one what you want. So I want to just do it one by one. So horizontal, vertical axes title. Now they're over here and I can just type over them. So I selected in this case for my X, it looks like years. So, or sorry, age. So I'll type age and then you're going to want to put the units, which is years. I can't type right now. Years. There we go. We always want to put parentheses around the units. Then on the x-axis, get rid of that. We are going to do the number of murders. All right, cool. Now you're probably looking at this and thinking you can't read the numbers, right? It's really tiny. So what I like to do to make just zoom in on the graph is you kind of just click anywhere in the white space, go back to your home, and then you can just hit this big A and it will gradually make everything bigger. And you can just, whatever you want it to look like, there you go. Okay. So that's everything we need for a scatter plot for our correlation. So that is done. The next thing you want to do is put it on a Word document. So for your homework, it's going to say like create 2 figures and then put a figure caption. So obviously you're not turning in Excel, right? So we're just going to copy this, copy it, go open a Word document and then just paste it. And it's nice and big, okay? It doesn't necessarily need to be this big. Maybe this is more of a better size like that. Okay, then we go below it, right? Always below, and we start writing our figure caption. In this case, the example says figure or example 1, so we want to make it match figure 1, colon. And if you're wondering where I'm getting this info, it's all on the slides for the formatting. We always bold it. Unbold. Then the next thing you do is write a brief statement, okay? Don't want a paragraph, okay? Nothing crazy, just a brief statement on what you found to be true. So you'll look over at your output and let's look at our little r. So our correlation coefficient was 0.86. We talked about in class that anything above 0.8 is a strong correlation. okay? Now, however, you want to check the p-value. Our p-value is 0.0023. And you should remember that that tells us that our data is insignificant. So what you would say here is there, I don't want it to be bold, so I'm gonna, there is no association between the age of Miss America winners and the number of murders in a given year. Perfect. That's quick and easy, brief statement. Or you could have said there's a strong association, and then later in your discussion, you would have talked about, well, we actually found that the p-value was insignificant. Okay, but again, just briefly. Then you do parentheses, and we're going to report all of our stats. So first thing you do is state what you ran. We ran a correlation, colon. Then you want to give the 3 things that I asked for, which is, we'll start off p-value because that's probably the most important, right? That's 0.0023. Yeah. Obviously, you don't need to put all like 9 digits, just so you can get a good visual here. So there's our p-value. Our little r, or our correlation coefficient, came out to 0.8, we'll just say 87. And then our n was 9, and done. Okay, that's literally it for this figure. I ran the stats in Excel, pulled out the necessary info for the figure caption, and made sure my format is solid. We're good. Okay, so now let's go back to Excel and do the next one. The second one is looking at test performance. So here we want to look at the amount of sleep, okay, for a student and how that affects their test performance. So hopefully you're thinking to yourself, well, we are controlling one thing here, and that's the amount of sleep, all right? The outcome, or the dependent variable, the thing we cannot control, has to be the test scores, okay? We cannot control how they perform. So that tells us we are going to run a regression. So you go to the guide and you find the instructions for regression. Now, luckily, the regression instructions are pretty much the same thing as the correlation. So to calculate a regression, we literally just go to the data analysis toolpack and run regression. So let's go ahead and do that. Data analysis, regression. Okay. All right. Now, this one, we do have to consider where we're putting our data. Okay, X and Y does matter since we do have an independent variable. So I identified that our X, or our independent variable, is sleep. So I'm going to do that one first. I'm going to highlight the amount of sleep, go back to my Y, and highlight the test score for dependent. I selected the label, so I have that done. Confidence interval, we always leave that at 95%. We don't need anything else here. Then I'm just going to select my output. I want it to go right here and hit OK. Perfect. Now we have everything we need. Now, we have to go back though and check the guide because we're reporting different values. When it comes to a regression, we don't want the little r, right? We want r squared. So we have to highlight now the second row for our summary output for r squared. We actually don't need to report this value, so that's a mistake. You can ignore that. Don't need that. And then over here under coefficients, this is going to tell us the formula for our y equals mx plus b equation. So intercept, that will be your b, and the second row, this number will be your m for the slope. But actually when we make the graph, it generates it automatically, so we can just grab it from there as well. But what will not be generated is this value here, and that's our p-value, which is going to be the second row. So we'll go back to test performance and pull the data we want, r squared. We can ignore that one. Right here we have the things we need for our formula and then our p-value. Perfect. Okay, so now we need to create the graph by selecting all of the data we want to include. Insert. Um, for regression, you might be tempted to select one of these with a line because we do need a trend line, but this will connect the dots, not create a trend line. So just click the same one as last time, scatter plot, and we'll manually make our trend line so we are sure it's correct. Perfect. So there we have what we need. First thing we're going to want to do is get some labels. So I'm going to insert labels first. Our x-axis or independent variable was the amount of sleep, and then the units are hours. And then our y or dependent was their test score performance, and the units was like percentage that they earned on the test. Cool. Now we need to put in our trend line. So we go add chart element, trend line, linear. Okay, since this is a linear relationship. Boom, there you go. So then you can actually format this trend line by, for me, I have a Mac. I just click with two fingers or like right click, I guess, if you're on a PC, and go to format trend line. Cool. So here, what we want to do is click display equation on the chart and then display our squared value on the chart. So if you look, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, it is the same exact numbers that we have here and here, but now it's just automatically placed it on our graph. So it's easy. The one thing you do not want to select is here. Do not set the intercept because that will make this line hit 0, 0 and therefore make it incorrect and not representative of our data set. So we'll leave that. If you wanted to, you can change the way your line looks by coming over here to, these different settings. Like you can change it from dash to solid. I prefer that, but it doesn't really matter. You can leave it dashed if you'd like. And that's it. I would move it away just so we can, see it better. And then of course we can go back and make the font bigger by selecting the white area and then just increasing the size. There we go. If you want to get rid of the back grids, you can do that as well by just going to grid lines, just because it looks a little busy. I'm going to take them off. There, now it's a little more clear. Okay, and that's it for the regression. So now we're going to copy it, paste it to to Word. It's a little too big, so I'm going to make it smaller. And then figure caption. This one is number 2, figure 2, bold it. Give a brief statement. Let's see. Our R squared is 0.75. So it's not quite close to 1. So I'd say moderate. But we can also look at our p-value. What is that? 0.001. That's definitely less than 0.05. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a statement that this is not significant. So I'm going to say there is no significant relationship, because we are doing a regression, between the amount of sleep and a student's test performance. Obviously, this is not very good grammar, but for the sake of this video being about Excel, that's good enough. Okay. I'm going to move this. Perfect. After the caption, we're going to state the test we ran, which was a regression, colon. Let's state our formula, y equals 7.98 is fine. X plus 26, we'll just say 0.6, that's good. Our R squared comes out to be, do a little subscript, 0.75. And then our p-value was, you have to find that from Excel over here, 0.00. I think I said that's insignificant. That's a very low p-value. So that is significant. So that's my mistake. There is, sorry, a significant relationship between the amount of sleep and a student's test performance. Cool. Sorry about that. So that's P. And then lastly, we always need to include our N, number of observations, which is 10, right? So there's 10 dots. I'm getting that number right here. Okay, so we have our formula, R squared P N, and that is all we need for a perfect figure. All right, highlight this just. Okay, sweet. So let's go on to the next one. This is our Ozempic example. So this one is looking at the weight before and after a person was on Ozempic for 1 month. So hopefully when you see before and after, that triggers you to think we need to run a paired t-test, right? Same individual. We're looking at one person and their weight before and after. All right, so here we go, paired t-test. Here's the instructions. So first up, it says, the easiest way to make a t-test is to manually calculate the means, the standard error of the means, and the p-value. So it's a little different from the other ones where we're not going to use the data tool pack. You could, but I found that this is much easier. So step one, find the average of each data set or each column. So I'm just going to make a little key here so I know what I'm looking at. I'm going to put the mean. Then to solve for the mean, you always hit equals, and that tells it the function. And then you hit average or AVG, average. And then you just highlight everything you want to know the average of. And then you close your parentheses and you hit enter. Cool. So now this is our mean or average for before. Now you could do the same thing over here and hit equals, average, select, or to make it more efficient, you can select this first box where you typed the formula. And in the bottom right corner, you can click and drag it across and it will automatically do the same thing and calculate the mean of the second column. All right, so that just makes it a little easier. What else do we need to do? So that's number one, average. Second is calculate the standard error of the mean for both data sets using this formula. Okay, this formula is also in the PowerPoints. I think I have it memorized, but if you don't, you can just copy it from here or copy it from the slides, but I'll walk you through it. So here, standard error of the mean. We're going to start out by hitting equals. Then we're going to look at standard deviation. So to do that, you want to type in STDEV, or sometimes it'll just pop up like it did. So that tells us standard deviation. Then it'll say number one or like data set, and that means select all the data you want to learn about. So I've selected everything there. Close parentheses. And then if you remember, to find standard error, you divide by the square root of the number of values. So I hit divide. I type SQRT for square root. Then to tell Excel that I want it to count each cell that's in the set, I type count A. Okay. Then I highlight what I want it to count, which is the same exact data set, highlight it all. And then I just need to close off the parentheses. I believe it's 3. No, it's 2. So right here it says we found a typo in your formula. That will happen. It just means I put 3 instead of 2. So do you want to accept? Yeah, it was just an error. Cool. So again, you can type the whole thing here or click and drag across to be efficient. And now we have the standard error of the mean for both. All right. go back to our guide, and it tells us number 3, lastly, calculate the p-value using a t-test with this formula, okay? So this is the formula that you enter when you're doing a paired t-test and a paired t-test only. So what you do is we're going to type it in, data set 1, doesn't matter, I guess, which one would be before, data set 2 would be after. Then you're going to hit a comma, 2, comma, 1. The 2 and the 1 are the same every single time. The only thing that's changing is you highlighting the data sets. Okay, this is just how you tell Excel to run a paired t-test. So let's go ahead and do that. T-test, oops, p-value is what I'm going to get right here. So I'm going to hit equals t.test, and then it'll pull up exactly like a little prompt for what you should enter. So array 1 just means set 1, highlight, then a comma, array 2, set 2, comma, and then here you're probably like, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 tailed, doesn't matter. Like I showed you over here, you just do 2 for 2 tailed, 1 for paired. And then you close the parenthesis, enter, and there you go. That is our p-value. Let me make this a little bigger. All right. So we have everything we need here. So now we need to make the graph. So before and after, hopefully that tells you. And also we have the means here that we need to make a bar graph. So to do that, you could highlight all of the data, but there's a couple more steps involved. So what I found is it's easier to just graph the means. So I want to label these means. So I'm going to go and hit insert. Actually, I'll just right click and I want to insert cells above so I can label this before and then after. Okay, then I'm going to highlight before, after, and the means, then hit insert, then hit a bar graph. You can really hit any of these and it will make your bar graph. Perfect. So if you didn't make headers right here for before and after, then it would probably be blank or just say 1 or 2. And then it's a little tougher to edit. So that's just a little trick I've learned. So now we can go ahead and format this graph. So I'm going to go ahead and make it bigger. Then I'm going to go chart design, insert the titles. Actually, you don't need a title for the bottom. You could put before and after, but it's already pretty clear here. So I'm just going to do a title for vertical right here because we don't know what this is. And we'll say it's the weight and the units are pounds. All right. Then we need to we need to insert error bars. So to do that, add chart element, error bars, standard error, and here they are. Now, to customize them, right, I'm going to right click or double click the error bars, format error bars, custom, specify, and then I have my standard error of the mean already done here. So I'm going to select them. First, for the positive, hit the box, select both, okay? Then for the negative, again, select the same exact thing, both of them. That's showing you what's positive up the top and negative down at the bottom. That's it, okay? Beautiful. Now they've changed and now they are accurate and they accurately reflect the standard error of the mean and not the standard deviation. Now, it's a little hard to see these error bars the way the color is. So what I could do, I could make the error bars like thicker. Maybe I could do, yeah, increase the width maybe, or, or you can come over to change the color by, how do you do that? I forgot. Format data point, yeah. Then go to the fill, and for the color, I'm just gonna make it a lighter blue. That didn't work. That might not be it. Let's see. Or maybe up here I could do change color. There we go. So yeah, you can actually just do it up here. Change the color. And now we can actually see the error bar. Okay, so that's it for the graph. So I'm going to copy it and come back to Word. I'm going to put this on a new page. Perfect. Again, it's a little big, so I'll just make it smaller. This is figure 3. Bold it. And let's get started. So let's look at our p-value. This p-value is tiny. So we can say there is a significant difference in weight before and after 1 month of taking Ozempic. Cool. So then we will write in our stats. We ran a paired t-test, colon, p-value was 0.00015, very, very small. The p-value, oh, the ends, there we go. Because it's a paired t-test, we only need one n, okay? So the n is the number of, in this case, participants that were in this study. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So n equals 14, right? Not 28 because it's the same group. And there we go. We are done with figure 3. All right, last but not least, number 4. So this one is looking at the resting heart rate after 1 week in students who meditated versus students who did not. So group 1 is the group that was told to meditate. Group 2, they did no meditation. So that tells us that we are looking at an unpaired t-test, okay? 2 completely separate groups of human beings being tested for the same variable, which is heart rate. So we'll go to our guide and go to unpaired t-test. Step 1 tells us to calculate the variance of each group using var. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Go to the bottom and we're just going to label this as variance. To do that, you just hit equal var and then again highlight what you want to select, enter. Now I'm going to again click and drag it across to just repeat. Okay, now you're going to get a little error in this case because the number of cells between group 1 and group 2 is different. So there's some blank ones here. So to fix it, you can, for me at least, I can select the error and just hit update formula to include cells. So that means it's updating the formula here to include the new cells. If you're getting a different error or it's not working, just retype var. It's really quick for the second one, okay? Since there's a different number of values. Alrighty, so that's variance. Number 2, open the f-test for 2 sample variances. Remember to input the data set with the highest value first. So that's why we just calculated the variance. So now let's run our f-test, which tells us if the variance is equal or unequal. To run an f-test, you go data, data analysis, and you find f-test for 2 sample variances and just hit OK. Now, for variable 1, it says to enter the variable with the highest variance first. So for this one, it's over here. So I'm going to select all the data. And then second one, select the data. I did not select the labels for this, so we're good. Output range, I want my f-test to go here. So I hit OK. Perfect. All right, so let's go back to the guide and see what we want to look at. So we want to look at the second to last column. Here's the p-value. And we want to see, is it greater than or less than 0.05? Okay, and that'll tell us then which test to run next. So let's go back. Our p-value turned out to be 0.1. So that is more than 0.05. So what do we need to run? Greater than 0.05, we have equal variance. Okay, so we want to run 0.1 is greater than, so we have equal. We want to run a homoscedastic t-test. So assuming equal variances. So we'll go back and we'll go to data analysis, and we look for t-test assuming equal variances. Hit OK, and then we just do the same thing. Select our data. Variable 1. I'm going to select the label for this one. It will help me with graphing later. So labels, yes. And variable 2. Alpha output range, I want to put it here. Okay, awesome. A little smushed, so I'm going to just make this bigger. Okay, so the reason I put labels on that one is because it will show up here. If I didn't put that, it'll just say variable 1, variable 2, like up here. The reason I did that is because when I graph it, I'm going to highlight this, and that way it'll pop up on my graph. But before we do that, let's go ahead and see what we need to select. All right. So we are going to need the p-value here down below, and then up above, here's the means, variance, and then the observations as well. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. And then the p-value I want was this one. And then if we need the means, we know where they are. They're here. All right. So let's go ahead and graph this. We are going to, again, select the means with their labels. We're going to hit Insert, Bar Graph, and here we go. Because I had these labels, they're already down here, okay? And that makes editing a lot easier. So delete that. Let's make it a little bigger by hitting that. And I think I'm actually going to change this to just say meditation. This is the meditation group. And then the other one to say no meditation. Because for the y-axis, we're going to go ahead and put heart rate in the units. So it's a little redundant. Heart rate, and then beats per minute. Perfect. Now we're gonna have to do our air bars. Before I do that, I'm gonna change the color. It's still kind of dark. So it's lighter. Oops. Okay. So that way our air bars will show up a little better. Okay, so now insert chart element, air bars, standard air. And then we are going to need to edit. But I just realized we did not calculate standard error of the mean. So let's go ahead and do that really quick before we format. Okay, so again, equals STEV, highlight your data, close parentheses, divided by square root, count A, highlight your data, close parentheses, awesome. And then click and drag across. Again, because we have a different amount of points, I got an error, so I'm going to update it. Perfect. Now we can go back, format the error bars, custom, specify, then you select both. Again, select both. Perfect. Okay, there we go. These error bars are tiny, okay? That's just, look, it's 1.51. So that's just how it is, okay? Sometimes they'll be big, sometimes they'll be small. Now, I want to copy my graph, put it in a Word document, and now we just have to do our final figure caption. Figure 4. Bold. So let's take a look here. Our p-value was extremely small. So we can say, again, it's this p-value down here. Don't mix it up with this p-value. For the f-test, that p-value just told us what to run here. Okay, so I'm going to say there is a significant difference in heart rate between students who meditate and students who do not. All right. What did we run? We ran a, how was it? Equal. So it was a homoscedastic t-test, colon, p equals 0. Oh no, it was 1.9. It's fine. E to the 0 point, or e to the 9. All right, p-value, and then we need our n's. So the n values are different. So we want to do n subscript meditation. The meditating group over here I see had 19 individuals. The n for, again, subscript, no meditation, equals 22. And that's it. P-value ends. Yeah, that is all. All right, so if this was like a homework assignment, you would have your figures and then you would just go down below. And then if there were any discussion questions, you would just go ahead and finish them. And then save this as a PDF and submit. This, again, remember, I don't need any of this, okay? You don't have to turn it in. But do keep this specific document handy so you can refer to all the instructions. And then if you have any errors, like, in Excel, you can come back to this test and see what happened, okay? Because everything is saved and you can see all the codes. All right, guys, that is all. So hopefully this helps you throughout the semester to work through Excel. If you have any questions, you can refer to the key or this video or myself. And that's all. Thank you.